I know that many more intelligent people are going to look at the title of this video and they're going to say, oh my God, here's another one of these conspiracy videos or something, but it's not. I want to give you the cliff notes on this. Actually, I got this information from the Diehold Foundation. It's a website, or not a website, it's a YouTube channel, Diehold, Diehold, like the two words all together, Diehold Foundation. And you can go through their videos, and some of them are quite long, over an hour each. I want to give you the cliff notes on it real quick. Basically, they found a date, and there's a cyclical pattern that happens. I think it's every 12,068 years, where the sun supernovas, and it causes massive destruction on this Earth. It also coincides with the magnetic polar reversal of the North and South poles. Not saying that the Earth flips, but the poles flip. And what happens with that is that the Earth's rotation dramatically slows down at that interim when the poles flip, because the Earth's rotation speed is actually related to the magnetic force of the Earth. Also want to point out, I'm showing some mastodons. These are in upper Siberia. You know, it's an artist rendering of what it would look like back in the day. Northern Siberia, which is all tundra and snow above the Arctic Circle today. At the time, before this solar supernova happened and the magnetic poles flipped the last time, this area was a lush jungle full of mastodons. Now, there's actual physical evidence for this, because the mastodons, you see these long tusks, there's so many of them up there that they're flash frozen. And up to maybe a couple hundred years ago or 150 years ago, this was the main source of ivory for the world. The tusks from the ancient prehistoric mastodons that were flash frozen in Siberia. As a matter of fact, they were flash frozen so quickly that the meat on these mastodons was still good, and they were feeding it to the sled dogs in Siberia. So what happened? Well, there was a cataclysmic event that occurred about 12,000 years ago or so. Also, if you look at the Great Pyramids of Giza, now I know these are not burial sites for the pharaohs. It might have been later on use, but the original use was probably a Tesla-type Wardenclyffe Tower thing, power generation by an advanced civilization. Human or not human, I don't know. That's another question. But if you look at the casing stones they're missing from all these pyramids, some of the archaeologists say that we all know that the casing stones from the Great Pyramid were used to build Cairo, Egypt. But some of the archaeologists say that the casing stones were blasted outward from the Great Pyramids, and they were strewn all upon the desert. And then the people who built Cairo just had to pick up these stones and build Cairo. They did not go up to the pyramid and pry them off one at a time. No, that's some of the people saying this. And actually, if you look in South America, there was evidence where they were mining, say, a 100-ton block, and they were in the process of, moving it from the quarry to the location where it was going to be part of a building, and everything stopped midstream. It was as if something cataclysmic happened and everything stopped. So we're going to get onto this, and actually, there's actually a date where this possibly will happen. More than likely will happen. 2046, October 16th, and it's a date range. They found a date range within, say, September to November 2046. But I believe I saw it in one of the videos that he put out in the Diehold Foundation that it's in the Torah. They actually give you the Torah, Jewish, what the Christians call the Old Testament, that the date is October 16, 2046. Now, this goes along with a lot of stuff you see with the Mayan calendar, maybe a little off, Edgar Casey's predictions and all that. Now, we do know that the Earth has a magnetic field around it, which you can see in the last years and decades, especially in the last recent years, the magnetic pole has been moving more and more rapidly from northern Canada towards Siberia. It's going across the Arctic. And they think, they had to change the compass settings and stuff. They even had to change the atomic clock by several seconds because the Earth's to align it up with what was going on astrologically with the Earth's rotation, because the Earth's rotation slowed down a little bit. It's kind of weird. You wouldn't think that would happen, but that is coinciding with the magnetic field of the Earth slowing, getting weaker. The magnetic field of the Earth is actually um, something that is which causes the Earth to rotate. And everything is interrelated in the solar system. Like one of the things they point out, you'll see commonly known on school textbooks, that the sun is like a bunch of nuclear reactors. That's not true. Um, Somehow there's energy fields that are coming from all parts of the universe or from the galaxy, and I think they're called Bertram currents. We're interrelated with the sun. As a matter of fact, the Earth, it does not have a molten iron core, because it's just textbook 101 that magnetic fields will stop. They will not happen if iron is molten. If you take magnet and you melt it, and you turn it into molten iron, there's no magnetic field. There's something else that's going on inside the Earth. Now, the last time we had a major ice age, most of the North American continent, actually more of this, was covered with ice. And the ice, in some cases, was thousands of feet deep. Like the New York City was covered, I think, in I don't know what it was, a half a mile of ice or a mile of ice or something. But when you're translating that to snow, that equals many times that, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times that in snow. Which means for it to get like that, snow must have came down in, I don't know, 100 feet a day or some crazy thing like that. Because it happened within a couple decades that the ice got that thick. Now, what happens is, there are, like when you're talking to solar cycles, now I'm showing a picture of the ocean bottom here for a reason. When you're talking to solar cycles, the solar cycles are 11 years, or 11, they're like 10 to 13 years. They average out, I think, 11.3 years. Then they have a larger solar cycle of about 88 years. Then they have another cycle, which is 12,068 years approximately. And that cycle is when the sun supernovas. When the sun supernovas, it lets out an extreme blast of heat. The last time it supernovaed, it appears that it would have hit the opposite side of the globe from Siberia. Like Siberia was warm, and then it got flash frozen. What happened was the sun would have supernovaed 12,068 years ago, back when the pyramids got the casing stones knocked off of them. And also you can see that the Sphinx had flood damage. And remember that flood damage from the Sphinx. That the opposite side of the world from Siberia would have been southern South America. So when that supernova at southern South America, at that, I don't know where it's going to hit next time. I have no idea. But it incinerated everything on the ground. And then what happens is, it pushes the atmosphere over to the opposite side of the world. And what happens when you compress air? What's an air compressor do in your air conditioning unit? It makes it colder. It's a physics rule, okay? So the compressed air actually that's where the flash freezing happened, on the opposite side of the world from where the solar supernova hit from the 180 degrees on a global sphere, where it hit in South America, where it incinerated everything in southern South America. The opposite side of the world, it flash froze everything because the atmosphere was compressed on the opposite side of the world. Now, what also happens is, this all happens at the time when the poles are flipping, and it's all related. In other words, the sun and the Earth, the Earth is all connected. As a matter of fact, you mentioned that Mars at one time had oceans, which you could see there's a lot of evidence for that. Every time this happens, every 12,068 years, we actually lose several feet of ocean water, because it knocks it out into the atmosphere, and it goes into outer space. We actually lose several feet of ocean water, and it pushes the planet slightly away from the sun, just a slight amount. Now, this is probably, if you're going back many, I don't know, tens of millions of years or hundreds of millions of years, Mars probably was inhabited by some kind of life at one point in time. It probably had oceans. And what happened is, these cycles, after a period of time, made it devoid of life, because it eventually knocked out the water. Now, you're talking gazillions of years from now, so don't worry about it, right? But the thing is, this event is actually, they got a pinpoint date of approximately, he pinpointed it from September to November 2046, which is not that far away when you think about it for something like this. And now you even look, and I think he said mentioned something in the Torah. He mentioned a lot of stuff in the Torah. He really he reinterpret that Torah that it's telling you a lot more, like what the staff of Moses was, what the apple was, what the serpent was. A lot of good stuff in his videos. Really great. I watched a lot of them. But the deal is that you don't, it's like it's going to happen. This is probably not conspiracy 101 garbage, and it's a ways off. But I'm going to kind of disagree with a couple things he said, maybe, because he's saying, and I don't disagree in a lot of ways, but if you look at these maps of the ocean floors, you see like there's like a canyon goes through the Hudson Bay, and it goes all the way down to the bottom of the ocean. See that? All the way down there, right? Right? Right down to the abyss of the bottom of the ocean. And then if you look at, well, they're not showing it so much, but if you look at, New York here, here's New York, right? New York right here. And you're seeing this cavern, canyon being cut from the continental shelf. They're not showing it past where the continental shelf is, but if you look at the Hudson River coming out, and actually there's a canyon being cut through the continental shelf, not being shown on this map, and then it goes down, all the way down to the bottom of the ocean floor. See that? And he says, how could that do that? I mean, fresh water doesn't go cut a canyon, hundreds and thousands of feet down. It doesn't do that. So, and you look at the Chesapeake Bay, same deal. This is like this all over the world. So what happens when the Earth's rotation slows down dramatically because, just for a brief period, when you have this magnetic reversal, what happens? The Earth is actually rotating about 1,000 miles an hour at the equator because, I think the circumference of the Earth is around 25,000 miles. You got 24 hours in a day. That's roughly makes it about 1,000 miles an hour, right? Just a little over that. What happens? Okay, the land slows down, which actually causes geological events like earthquakes. But the biggest thing is the water doesn't slow down. So all this water just pours out away from, it'll be going eastward. It pours out away from the east coast of the United States, and on the west coast, it pours into the west coast. Then when everything counterbalances, it comes flying back in. So in other words, the coast will be utterly destroyed. Now he made the remark that the water actually would totally empty out the Pacific Ocean and Atlantic Ocean, go over the lands, which is like when you saw in the movie 2012. I think it was 2012 when the Tibetan monks are ringing the bell and they see the ocean. He's up there in a mountain, and the ocean's going to be swallowing him up. I mean, this is a reference to this stuff. But when I look at this and I say to myself, I'm not too sure about this because there's other structures in South America like that would have been wiped out that are a lot really, really, really old. They're like more than 10,000 years old. I think they would have got destroyed. But then again, there could be a lot. This is not going to be something small. If you even look off of Cuba, they found pyramids under the ocean. Right? Remember that? If you ever noticed that? If you ever found out about that, Edgar Cayce even talks about these things. Everybody expected it to be right out around the year 2000 or 2012. Well, maybe it's 2046. Because this is going with the 12,068 year cycle. So the sun supernovas approximately every 12,068 years. Now, they probably got this pretty accurate. I don't know how he figured from, I forgot how he figured it would be from, likely from September to November, somewhere in that time, of 2046. And I don't know exactly how he figured that out, because I was watching all these videos and I said, well, this he was legit. He was legit. And I do know that there has been cataclysmic events that happened in the past. We also are about 500 years late on the beginning of the next major ice age, in long-term geological terms. He also pointed out that the magnetic reversals, which he's talking about, which is 12,068 years, that they happen every 12,068 years. They don't happen every, 300,000 years. And he showed that sentiment by sediment in the ocean, layers of plankton life and stuff, also volcanic ash, the residual magnetic, what was left in the volcanic ash, magnetism that was left in the volcanic ash, which direction it was, that these have occurred every 12,068 years. He says actually, it all coincides with why NASA was formed up. And he also mentions about, in I think it was 1957, 1958, we had an extremely abnormal amount of solar activity, which actually is why the Earth was getting warmer for at least a couple decades after that. It had to do with the sun. And, he does mention truthfully that, all the SUVs in the world are like having a flea on a rhinoceros. It doesn't really affect, what's going on. So, now, another thing, too, if you even look at, I think it was Department of Homeland Security, it warned about, I saw this on Business Insider some years ago, warned about, and they tell you that everything west of I-5 on the whole West Coast is going to get wiped out. I don't know when, but you know what? It probably will be around this time. I don't know. But there's going to be a lot of things that actually probably start happening. There'll be a lot of warning signs before this actually happens. So if you don't believe it, you might see a year before or so many months before, the sun is going to look like a big halo. It's going to look like it's got a white wall tire around it. And it's, as you mentioned, I don't know when that's going to occur exactly, but it's like it's not going to be hidden from the public forever. People are going to know. And I think our governments know about this. They probably have all these deep underground military installations, I don't know, for survival purposes. I don't know what they're doing. But you know what? They'll never tell anybody this stuff because it'll panic the crap out of them. This is another freaking reason I'll probably get up in Tennessee and go on my property and dig a freaking hole down there on the side of the mountain. Now, this is also in the northwest. I think it's in Oregon or something, or northern California along the coast. I think this was 388 years ago, not 12,068 years ago. But they had a sudden drop in the ocean floor and caused a major tsunami. California is actually a pretty perilous place to live. Actually, everywhere is a perilous place to live. No matter how you slice it, there's always something, someplace. Everything's got something. But I figured I'd put this out to you, obviously, it ain't gonna, this is for 2046. It's not gonna happen next year. I don't know what the technology is gonna be in 20-something years from now. What could be built? What could be done? I don't really know. Somebody's a home builder. They could be building nuke-proof homes, with, glass. Stainless steel igloo things or something. Reflect all the heat and I don't know, super insulation, R500 insulation instead of R22, and filters and whatever. Somebody can make a business out of this, right? But I don't know. It's a ways off. I'll be 90 years old when this crap happens. I'll be strong. I'll be up there in my mountain fortress up there in Tennessee. I'll be making moonshine. And, if it happens, fine. I don't know. I think I'll survive it. And I'm going to keep a lot of those extra Confederate flags because after the big flash happens with the solar thing and a big freeze, I'm going to raise that Confederate flag back up there and say, hurrah, we survived. Screw you, son. Anyway, screw you, Solar Nova. But yeah, think about it. If you were living in the middle of one of these great pyramids and this thing happened, you'd be fine, right? Nothing happened to you. That's the solution. Nuke-proof homes, builds pyramid homes, made out of stainless steel and aluminum or something. I don't know, grounded into the earth for lightning. I don't know. There's a way around it. It's a ways off, but it's not. This is not BS. This is not BS. You can look at his videos. It's weird how YouTube is. Also, and I Google Ice Age. I was like, Google Ice Age. I go Yahoo, Ice Age. I go on Bing, Ice Age. You know what comes up? With a bunch of cartoon characters off of some movie, Ice Age. And I'm like thinking, I'm looking for a thing that says the ocean wants to show me the glaciers, I'm like, so I found something on Wikipedia or some crap, and it says, hey, here it is. You know what I mean? It's like, they don't even want you to know about this. They don't even want you to know about this. And actually, interestingly enough, They estimate, we're going into the mini ice age. Now, I contend that we might be going into the major ice age. Not just me, but some people say maybe. Because what happens is right before you go into major ice age, the last mini ice age turns into a major one. And we're not supposed to bottom out to 2050, which coincides with that 2046 thing. But remember, this is not just cold. This is called the magnetic reversal. And the magnetic reversal doesn't mean the Earth flips around, but it means that the Earth's magnetic poles flip around. And when that happens, it happens at the same time that the sun supernovas. It's a pulse. Just like the sun has these solar cycles, 11.3 years on average, it's a pulse. Oh, something else. Russian scientists recently have been measuring the Schumann Earth frequency, which normally, I know the Schumann Earth frequency's got several frequencies, but one of the big main ones is 7.83 hertz, right? Well, they've been finding it's been going at 11, 12, 15 hertz, and I don't know why. I don't know. I can't tell nothing myself, but, and, interestingly enough, because I don't want to think that the ocean's going over the whole continent, because then you're like SOL no matter what you do. But interestingly enough, when you're talking about these canyons in the ocean, right? In the ocean, going all the way down to the bottom of the ocean, like you can see down here, that's from runoff. That's runoff water. See? Now, I don't know if this happens every 12,068 years. This might have happened a million years ago, maybe. I don't know. It could have been, maybe there was bigger cycles back then. Because, I don't know, I don't know. Who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? But there's a lot of archaeological evidence to show that, there's been advanced civilizations on this earth before. They might not have been human. They might have been human-like. But way smarter than us, Obviously, their technology to build that Great Pyramid right there, that tells you something. Get a crane to lift those blocks up there. Go ahead, do it. Go try to find a 100-ton crane, well, whatever. That's something else. But why this occurs is that it happens all in one day. All in one day. The sun supernovas. It does this on a regular basis every 12,068 years. So next time, it's supposed to be 2046, between September and on November. And actually, I think he picked it out. I think he picked it out from the Torah, October 16th, 2046, which was right smack in the middle of his estimate range. So, I don't know. I figured I'd point this out. If you want to look at his videos, go right ahead. I found them very interesting. I'm trying to give you the cliff notes on this. That's all I got to say. I mean, it ain't going to happen tomorrow, so don't worry about it. Over and out.